Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged Plus podcast. This is, I just can't, I've got to stop waxing lyrical when I do introductions to my guests on this show because it doesn't help. Suffice it to say that today's guest is just legendary, brilliant, highly entertaining and massively informative and really, really, really worth listening right to the bitter end of this week's episode because it is extraordinary revelation. Before we start, though, I just want to very quickly mention our lovely sponsors. They've been sponsoring us for a long time. They are an extraordinary company. They are developing amazing technology. It is built in the UK. It is sold all over the world now. Very exciting. It will be, their products will be on display at Fully Charged Live in the USA in San Diego on the 10th and 11th of September. So it's worth checking out their stand. They're called My Energy, and they make amazing technology that helps you control your power usage in your house, regardless of source. If you've got solar panels, which a lot of people who have electric cars have, it makes your life a dream because you can use any excess solar to charge your car. My car has charged today, absolutely for real this time, absolutely plugged in, and it was charging the car off excess solar and it didn't add that much because it's not been that sunny. It was sunny this afternoon. It added about 60 miles of range to my car from the solar panels, which is amazing. I did nothing. I plugged the car in and walked away. That was all I had to do. That's the Zappy charger. Then there is the My Energy Eddy, that is a system that controls where all the electricity goes so that they work in conjunction with each other. And it's an amazing technology. Go to myenergy.com for more information. They're an incredible company, myenergi.com, myenergy.com, for a lot more information about what they do. They've been a great supporter of this show. We're a great fan of what they do for real because their technology they produce is amazing. And I'd like to thank all the people at My Energy for supporting the Fully Charged Plus podcast. And now on with the show, because this week's show is extraordinary. It does, I guess, focus on the American market, which is kind of appropriate at the moment because we're gearing up for the Fully Charged live show in San Diego, which I may have mentioned before, and just in case I haven't, it's on the 10th and 11th of September. Be there or be full of combustion engines. It's looking extremely exciting. This show. There's going to be a lot of people there. A lot of exhibitors are going to be there. The talks are going to be amazing. One of the topics we cover today is China and the Chinese car industry. And today's guest knows a lot about that. So today's guest is Sandy Munro from Munro Associates. Now, some regular Fully Charged viewers will be very aware of Sandy's work. Sandy is an extraordinarily talented and very experienced engineer. He reverse engineers lots and lots of things. All sorts of things, from Barbie dolls to space rockets, but more recently, very much focused on electric vehicles. And when I say reverse engineer, that means taking something to pieces and seeing how it's made, and seeing what manufacturing processes are used in that make. So they famously stripped down a Tesla Model Y during COVID lockdown in 2020. Literally taking it to its last component parts, stripping down the battery pack, the motors, the inverters, the powering system, the power system, the software, everything about it. And Sandy will explain what happened. And it basically shows that, Tesla are literally years ahead of any other manufacturer when it comes to drivetrain technology, not necessarily bodywork, as we know, but certainly what's underneath the hood, if you like, of an electric vehicle. There's no doubt that Tesla are way ahead. So it's a fascinating conversation. And I, as I said right at the beginning of this, I just want you to make sure you listen to the end, because what he says about the world's two biggest car makers, Toyota and Volkswagen, number one and number two, in terms of scale and actual manufacturing capacity, they are number one and two in the world. What are the future prospects for those two companies, and how are they dealing with the transition from combustion engines to electrification? Fascinating. This is not from some external pontificator, someone like me having an opinion about. This is someone who knows the automotive industry intimately from the ground up absolutely understands how things are made, how things are tooled, how things are constructed and manufactured on a mass level. Just an extraordinary insight into the world. Brilliant. So happy to have Sandy on the show, and please enjoy and welcome Sandy Munro to the Fully Charged Plus podcast.
I spent my first 40 years in Canada. I went through a couple of different careers. I grew up in a farming area and figured out that picking apples just wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And then, and so my dad ran a factory, and so I went into the trade, into tool making. I liked that. It was fine. But everybody encouraged me to go back to school, become an engineer. So I did go back to school after I got my ticket, and I worked mostly in automation and machine tools. So I worked on the very, very first Unimate robots and stuff like that. We were a very advanced couple of companies that were in Windsor, and I happened to work for them.
Right.
I worked my way up. I was the chief engineer at Valiant Machine Tool, which at that time was the biggest privately held North American machine tool company, and it was kind of a big honor. But Ford came along and said, hey, you don't have to have anybody working for you, nobody, and we want you to bring you in here as a manufacturing engineer. And I said, well, I don't know, what about the money? And they offered me this huge raise. So I got rid of 109 people. I moved to Ford Motor Company, got a nice little desk, which was wonderful for at least 6 months until the Japanese invaded with their cars. There was the downturn for fuel and whatnot, the embargoes and whatnot. And I suddenly found myself basically the only engineer that was young enough still to walk around the plant. It was amazing.
Right.
Yeah. So I got promoted a couple of times at Ford. I wound up in finance staff, actually, at the end of the day. And then Dr. Deming convinced me it might be a good idea to find other opportunities. And that's when I started the company. And we've worked on pretty much everything, and this is literal, everything from Barbie to the space station, literally.
Right.
So automotive was in there. It's always been around 50 or 60% of our business, but we get a chance to see a lot of different things. And you're asking, how do we get started with the teardown of EVs? And I have to thank COVID for that. We had ordered a Model Y quite a while before COVID hit. Anyway, it was delivered 3 days before they shut down the state. And so I had the team. We knew that there was going to be something happening because we saw what was happening in China and things like that. We figured there was going to be some sort of a shutdown. And consequently, what happened was we developed a plan for tearing the car apart, not inside the factory, but at each one of the different engineers' houses. And that's how we got going. And then the YouTube channel, my son also works for Munro. He works in marketing, and he wanted us to do a YouTube channel quite a while ago, but it was rejected because we also changed staff here quite a bit. The old president left, the CFO was let go, some of the other people that we just didn't need, and then I promoted Corey to president. And Corey was very hot for the YouTube channel, and that's how we got into it. So we started the YouTube channel in 2020 on April Fool's Day.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And now we're past 300,000 what do you call it, subscribers. I mean, it's been
subscribers.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, no,
Phenomenal.
amazing.
Yeah.
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 And you see, because I'm amazed that it's that recent, because I must have watched a lot of your shows then. So I would, in my mind, I would have thought you've been doing it longer because you've done so many episodes about stuff.
Yeah,
it's extraordinary.
but it was through other people. So
Right.
You know, Autoline Detroit interviewed me quite a few times. I'd been on Bloomberg and things like that, but doing it in-house, I mean, we looked at the cost that would be associated with doing that with real cameras and whatnot, and it was astronomical.
Crazy.
So right now I'm staring at two iPhones, and that's what's doing everything now. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
It is extraordinary, isn't it, how that has changed? I mean, because I come out of the old school broadcasting industry, you know, with big cameras that cost tens of thousands of dollars and lens, you know, all that stuff. And we've just filmed a thing in here earlier on today on tiny little cameras, and it's fine. It looks, what is interesting is it looks better than it used to look when we used cameras that cost £10,000. You know, the technology's improved, which in a way is very much in line with what we're talking about, because that. I don't know. I feel when you've stripped down an electric motor or an inverter or a battery, that's so unlike the world I grew up in, which was me being a very amateur mechanic fixing my petrol car, you know, my 1950s Morris, which was like quite easy to fix because it was very, very basic engineering, you know, but. But it's such a different world. I mean, that was such a completely. I look at that now like we look at steam trains. It's like really ancient technology.
It's
I mean, because so I think I assumed that you'd been stripping down other cars before this. Gasoline cars.
Oh, absolutely.
But
we've torn prior to the. So I switched the company, right? We don't analyze engines and transmissions anymore. And the reason for that is because, and by the way, I should tell you that at Ford, I was deemed an engine engineer. That was my job. I developed several different products that hit the marketplace and were pretty successful. But when I saw what came out of Tesla, when we tore apart the Model 3, the very first one, the outside was crap, no question about it. About everything that could go wrong did go wrong with that. But once we got rid of the body and we started looking at everything else, I mean, there were so many fabulous innovations. I couldn't see me. After I went through the first Model 3, I couldn't justify keeping the company on the same path. So we used to quietly work for a variety of different car companies. As a matter of fact, I spent about most of my time in Britain for about 4 years when we helped develop the new Mini. And when we were working with BMW, and they sent us over for that to try and see what we could do to help out Rover Group as a whole. So we worked on Land Rover and the Mini and several other different cars, but and that's actually where I first saw you on TV. Yeah, when it was over. Yeah, but you had a totally different genre then. But anyways, I looked at the future versus the past, and I'm hoping we're going to get into a little bit about what's happening with some of these people who are looking in the wrong direction. Yeah. But this was not really a tough decision. When I saw what was going on in the Model Y, and by the way, we had a huge contract with Chrysler. That was when it was with Fiat, and they represented about 70% of our business at the beginning of 2020, and they when the French took over, that was it. We got nothing. And we haven't had anything since. Yeah. It's amazing how much of a difference we made that transition, losing 70% of our business instantly. Yeah. How did we even survive? I mean, it was absolutely breathtaking for us anyways. Yeah. It worked out quite well. So I think that the transition from ICE vehicles to EVs was the best decision I've ever made in business ever in my whole life. Apart from coming into business, based on that, I'd say that was our best decision here.
Right, and I mean, so is it right then? Then the first electric car you took to pieces was a Tesla. You hadn't done other one like a Nissan Leaf or something else.
We did look at parts of the Leaf. We looked at the electric motor and the battery, and that was for a customer. We also, one of our competitors actually asked us to take a look at the Model X, and they do benchmarking and whatnot. But what they wanted from us was, you know, what innovations or what things would we change on that Model X? And I don't know, we had about 600-800 ideas that could change. And when I looked at the Model X, I said, who's going to buy this thing? I mean, it's really expensive. It's horribly complicated. And it's got really, really low volume. I mean, I just couldn't for the life of me figure out who was going to buy the thing. That was the first Tesla we'd ever done. Then like I say, we looked at a Leaf, we looked at a Bolt, we looked at a variety of different cars, but they were all for customers, different customers. And when we did the Model 3, that was for us. We needed to know what was going on, and that was prior to COVID, prior to losing the contract with Chrysler and everything. I mean, it was astounding. I mean, I was totally blown away. And remember, I said that we work on lots of different industries. Well, when I saw with the inverters or the body control modules, or anything that had to do with the electronics on the Tesla, they were so far advanced. They were more advanced than any of our DoD project, Department of Defense projects. This stuff was really, really exotic, really mind-blowing. And that's when I became sort of a Tesla fan. I'm a fan of electric vehicles. Electrification is where I really am a fan of. But I can't say enough about what Elon Musk has done for the industry and for the the ecology, everything. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is an extraordinary. Because I drive a Model 3 regularly, and I've had it a few years now, and because I'm constantly driving other cars, so we'll test another car. Yeah. So I've driven a lot of different electric cars, and every time I get back in, I'm not. It kind of doesn't make me happy because I want some of the other cars to be really good, and they are. Some of them are great, and there's it's certainly the thing you've already mentioned. The build quality on something like an Audi is way, way better than on a Tesla. The bodywork, the fit and finish, all that stuff. But the software in a Tesla, I don't know what it is. I'm quite an old guy, and I didn't grow up with computers, and I've got a smartphone, and I go blub, 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 and the Tesla app works instantly, and it always works. It doesn't go wrong. It tells me exactly what's going on with the car, all those things. And I've tried apps for dozens of other companies, and they never work. Yeah. They don't connect to the car. It's agony. You spend hours trying to make it join up. And, you know, I guess it's because effectively Tesla came out of the computer industry more than the automotive industry. You know, there was obviously a lot of engineers working on it. But the core software and as you've seen, the electronics in it, it just feels 10 years ahead of anybody else. And it's I'm waiting for some other manufacturer to catch up.
Well, good luck to whomever is going to try it. I can tell you, in second place in the United States, it's Ford, as far as sales and whatnot, and the opinions. You've got the same thing as me. You've got a bunch of folks that send you emails and text messages and things like that continuously, and most of the people that have contacted me are very pleased with the Mach-E.
Right.
But I'm telling you, for one of the established old companies, they're doing remarkably well. Others, not so much. I've panned quite a few different vehicles. The guys that are really, I think, going to wind up in the catbird seat is going to be the Chinese. I mean, I spent a lot of time in China looking at their electric vehicles, and then I was at the EVS, was it EVS 35 or something like that in Norway? Did you go to that?
Right. Yes. No, was that earlier this year?
Yeah.
Yes, no, I didn't. I have been in the past before. Yeah, I've been to it a few times in the past, but not. I didn't go this year. No, no, it sounded amazing. It sounded very good.
It was 100% Chinese, Vietnamese.
Yeah.
There was 2 Tesla vehicles, a Porsche, and something else. But I can't remember. A name you might know. The rest of the thing, I mean, they had something like, was it 40,000 square meters or something like that, a show, and they had testing modules, they had charging modules, they had different huge trucks and whatnot. I was really impressed. I wasn't expecting to see a show like that. A friend of mine, Mika, he's the one who got us to. He's from Sweden, and Norway. He's kind of like halfway between these two countries.
Right.
He got us to come over, and I'm telling you what, that was the best trip ever. It really showed me how advanced all the Chinese guys are with their vehicles and whatnot. Yeah, I was really blown away by their entry vehicals.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I think what's fascinating with what's going on in China is that the general public, I feel, it sounds like in North America as well as here, is that there's not that much awareness of it. So at our most recent live show that we did in the UK, we had the Aura Cat on display for the first time. It had been in the UK, a Chinese car, and there were people. I knew where it was when I looked outside of the window. It was over there. You couldn't see it. There was just a massive crowd of people around it all the time. And when we had an Xpeng P7 at the Amsterdam show, and the same with that. People were fascinated to see this car, and they were doing test drives in it. And they're sort of slowly appearing now in Europe. So Xpeng are in Norway. You can buy them there. And BYD and all these Chinese companies that I've sort of heard about for a long time. And I remember seeing some BYD cars at the Geneva Motor Show in like maybe 2010. And they did not, I would love to have been there with you, because you would have been able to describe why they were so badly built. They were not impressive looking cars then.
Yeah.
But you look at what they're doing now, it's incredible. I mean, they've caught up very, very fast, haven't they?
Well, actually, from about 2014 to 2019, I was in China for the last time in November of 2019. And the reason I was over there was to train them on how to design cars that first off people would like to look at, and how to design them so that you can build them. Because a lot of their vehicles, you could get 1 or 2 out the door, but you can never build them in volume. So working with them, and I will tell you, when one little anecdote, I was at Shanghai Automotive. And when you come to Shanghai Automotive, they have a huge reception area. And in there, you can get a really good cappuccino. They make coffees right there on the spot. It's as good as anything you're going to find in Milan. So I'm getting a coffee, and the next thing I know, I hear, "Bloody hell! What the hell are you doing here, Sandy Munro?" And somebody grabbed me by the back of my neck. I turn around. There's guys from Rover, guys from Bentley, guys from Rolls Royce, guys from Mini, all of them. Where did they all? I mean, we sat there. It was like old home week. We all knew each other. They bring you in for, I mean, it was a huge amount of money. We made a lot of money in China, showing them how to do things. And I'm telling you, I saw German guys from BMW there. I mean, it was everywhere was Europeans, some Americans. Mostly they were with the machine tool groups and stuff like that. So the Germans, they bought German machine tools, American machine tools, and what do you call it, Japanese. They were everywhere. Right. These guys were really serious, and that was when everybody in North America and Europe was sleeping about, about the electrification of the world. It was just amazing. But you can see why. I mean, you go to Beijing once when they have one of their blackout days. I mean, you can't see your hand in front of your face. You can't breathe. You got to put a hanky in front of your face in order to breathe. I mean, they had a real reason. They were at war with the smog or pollution, whatever you want to call it, and this was the only way out.
I mean, would you say the biggest threat to European and American car makers is China at the moment, rather than just transitioning to electric? It's actually it feels like they've made a step change. They've kind of got ahead of a lot of European and North American manufacturers.
Well, I think that right now, what Europe and at least North America, United States is trying to do is keep the Chinese out. They do not want them imported. Right. So there's a 25% import tax or something like that in the U.S.
Right.
Everything they can. And this is very reminiscent of what happened in the late 70s and early 80s when the Japanese started bringing their cars over. And, at that time, I can remember when General Motors had basically 60% of the market share. Now they have like 13, 14, something like that. And at that time, Toyota had 0 market share. And now Toyota is the biggest car company on the planet. And General Motors is, 6 or 8 down the line. They can't possibly keep up. Well, when Chinese start getting in the marketplace, and they will, I think that the Chinese car companies, plural, will probably take over about 30% of the market share here in the U.S. And I was going to I used to use my own charts, but when there's another group called Connect the Dots, when they put their Valley of Death chart out, we even had the same, I called mine Death Valley, they called it the Valley of Death. And that thing is just, they totally match. They're exactly the same. Right. So I use theirs because it gives them some credibility and it doesn't sound like I'm just pounding my own chest. But if you have a look at that, if you have a look for that thing, Connect the Dots, Valley of Death.
Yeah, I will do. Right. Because, this is one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, the emergence of, we mentioned it when we first started speaking, the emergence of new car companies.
Yeah.
So, but actually, if you think about it in Chinese terms, those all the car companies that we're referring to, I mean, BYD have been going a long time as a company. They made batteries for, we will all have had a BYD battery in a phone in the last 30 years, even if it was a flip phone with a little aerial, the battery in it was probably made by BYD. So they've been around a while. But I mean, companies like NIO, XPeng, they've only been around maybe 10 years at the most. They just didn't exist at all. And they've grown into these huge manufacturing companies. And they are, I think that's what we're very lucky to have a wonderful man called Elliot who lives in Shanghai, English guy, who who test drives all the Chinese cars that we can get hold of. And they're not, living in this country, you might think, they're a prototype or something like that. No, and then you find out, they've made 150,000 of these already, and they're producing about 1,000 every day. They are mass producing these vehicles already.
Right.
And there's a lot of them on the roads or millions of them on the roads in China. But I think what's equally intriguing, and this is where I've realized I'm beyond my skill set to understand this, is the startup companies in the United States and here. So here we have Arrival, electric vans and buses.
Yeah.
And I've been to their plant, their factory, and their R&D department. It's amazing. They look amazing. The whole concept of how they're manufactured is completely different. And I cannot judge whether they will be successful. They've had a lot of money put into them, a lot of press attention. They're not yet mass producing vehicles. They've made lots. We've had them at our shows. Everyone loves them. And there's so many stories like that around, particularly in North America. I mean, Faraday Future, Lucid, Aptera, Canoe, all those new companies. Where I can't tell which ones are going to be common knowledge and everyday thing that everyone knows those cars, they've seen them around, nothing special, and which ones will just disappear in a puff of very clean electrons.
Electrons. A puff of electrons. Good idea. but here I'll tell you. Arrival actually invited us out to California, to Los Angeles actually, to have a look at their vehicle and stuff like that. So we've seen it up close and personal, and I believe I'm going to be going back to see that in Britain sometime in the not too distant future. So I know about Arrival, and Aptera is one of our customers. They're getting advice on how to get things done from us. Now, if you bundle them all together, you probably got maybe 25 or 30 European and American companies, right, that are brand new. But there's 600. Well, the last time I was in China, I was there to give a speech in Shanghai. I had thousands of people in the audience, thousands, and I was the keynote.
Wow.
And then what happened? Well, I was asked to hold back because Chairman Xi wanted to make say a few things. And you know what?
Wow.
When you're in China and they say Chairman Xi wants to do something, you say yes, immediate, not even a hesitation. Yeah, this is a guy that you don't want to be unhappy about. So anyway, I start off, I say, well, that's fine, whatever you want to do. So Chairman Xi comes on, and I have my little microphones on so I could hear what he was saying in English. And here he goes. He said, there are 680 new car companies in China. I need you to drop that in 5 years to 350 car companies. That's ponderous. 350 car companies? I can't think that there might be 350 car companies in Europe, in the United States, since the car began. It's staggering, staggering to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, and basically what he said, we're all Han, we're all Chinese. Find your cousins and brothers and whatnot, figure out how you're going to work it out, but I only want 350. And I think he's got them already down to 350, and they're serious about getting into business. They're serious about making a dent in the marketplace, and they have everything they need. Yeah. They got all the batteries in the world. They've got their cars are good looking. They're well made. They definitely would stand behind them. I mean, there's a lot of rules in China about don't screw with the customer, and they will definitely be doing what they need to do in order to get a serious amount of a market share. So for me, I think what happened between Toyota and General Motors, we can look at this in a slightly different way and say the Chinese versus Europe and United States, or Europe and the Americas. And I think you're going to see a gigantic movement in the next 5 years from virtually no Chinese vehicles to significant amounts of Chinese vehicles. Significant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is one of those little stories. You know, the one that we were very aware of was we were sent a press release by a city, Leicester, a city in the UK, a few years ago, where there was they'd introduced their first fully electric bus to their local city network, and there was a photograph of the mayor of Leicester standing next to this bus, and I knew the bus. I'd recognised it because it said BYD on the front. So it was a Chinese bus. And that was on the same day. So we got that in the morning. And in the afternoon, we saw this report from Shenzhen in China where they had taken, I think it was 15,000 diesel buses off the road and put 15,000 electric buses on the road in one day. Not one bus, 15,000. And when you see that scale of how they do that, it's, you know, puts the occasional electric bus we have in the UK in perspective. You know, it is an extraordinary thing. But I mean, do you not have very much faith then in the kind of, other than Tesla, the startup electric car companies in the United States? I mean,
no. I think that. I think that Rivian has got a good shot. I have one of their vehicles. It's my wife's, according to her, it's her car. She does like the Model 3 for driving better than any car she's ever had in her whole life. But we do have the Rivian, which I think is great. I think that
Yeah.
I think that anytime you look at a car coming from even a startup company, like you mentioned Lucid and things like anything you see like that coming from a startup company is actually about the same as where you'd find the GMs, the Fords, the BMWs, whomever. they're in the same ballpark. So even the older established OEMs are what I think when they bring out their new cars. I think they're kind of like novices. Maybe the build of the car is wonderful, but I will tell you that that what's underneath the skin is in its infancies. We've torn apart all these different vehicles. We can put all these different electronic circuit boards next to each other. This guy's got 5. Tesla's got 1. This guy's got 3. Tesla's got 1. This guy's got, in order to make it all happen, 8 different boards. Tesla's got 1. How in the world are they going to compete? I mean, there's a chip shortage. Maybe somebody should have mentioned that, but every time you have redundancy inside these things, you got a problem. It just doesn't work well. And then how many of them are actively pursuing a way to get around these different shortages by going to vertical integration? Well, virtually none. So Tesla is so right now in the U.S. If you look at the American market, Tesla is got about 70%, and Ford is 6.2, which is the number 2 position.
Right.
If you're looking at pure EVs.
Wow.
Holy mackerel, think on that's ponderous. That is ponderous. So I think that as long as if Tesla can try and figure out, they need to buy about 6 or 8 more factories, and I believe that they'll be able to get them quickly, because I think that there's going to be people shutting down factories left, right, and center. As a matter of fact, Stellantis just announced that today they just announced that they're going to get rid of their stamping operations in Warren. That's like 1,500 people that are unlucky yesterday. They shut it down yesterday. So I think that there's going to be plenty of buildings laying around. I know the machine tool industry is sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for something big to happen. I think Tesla's probably going to go on a buying spree and pick up whatever they want, wherever they want, because really and truly, their biggest constraint isn't anything to do with except being able to pump out more factories. They need more factories in order to get done what they need to get done.
Because I mean, that's a thing that I'm not aware of. I haven't had enough experience of Chinese cars, but I've had enough experience of many manufacturers in Europe, and it's always the software from the point of view of a driver and someone using the car. It's the software that lets it down. If anything lets it down, it's the software. It's not the hardware. Is fine, and maybe there are things that Tesla do that are more efficient and a better use of materials and all those things. I'm very aware that's the case. But what you experience as a driver is that the software, the interface between me as a driver and the machine is it's pretty lousy at best. That's what always disappoints me. And I mean, I think the exceptions for me, the Polestar, when I drove the Polestar, I went, oh, that was pretty good. That works pretty well. It's pretty, it was very intuitive. I understood it. I understood how to use it straight away, which is very much more like the Tesla. But so many, I mean, we have a VW ID4 now. We've just had it for the last few days. And I really enjoy driving it. It's fine. And the mechanics of it, the engineering behind it, that you can feel it in the way it drives. Brilliant. I wouldn't criticize any of that. But the software is just, the little quirks it's got with its electronics are just, we're like, why have they done that? They've had, I don't know how many decades of experience in building cars. Why have they suddenly gone, I would almost rather just give me a manual handle to do the window, not a funny little button that if you accidentally brush your fingers near it, it opens the back windows when you want to open the driver. It's like, oh, for goodness sake, just.
Well, you do know,
things
I
like
mean, we had an ID4, And I had made a bunch of predictions, and I said that Volkswagen is going to be number 2 in back of Tesla, and they are going to give Tesla a run for their money. And then the ID4 showed up, and I said, well, I like the appearance and whatnot. It looks kind of aggressive, and that's great. I got in, I sat down, and I said, well, it's got a lot more dials and buttons than I would have liked, but hey, let's get this thing on the road. And what? I couldn't believe it. The self-driving aspect, or the autopilot, whatever you want to call it, it wouldn't work. It definitely scared the crap out of me a couple of times. It didn't have the pickup that I thought it was going to have. I mean, I'm experiencing things like from the Y and the we had a Y and S and a 3, two threes, and I couldn't believe it. This thing is a dog. And then we take it to, and we had it up on the hoist. Okay, so you've got Tesla there with basically BMW underpinnings. It just looks like a BMW underneath, and you put the VW up, and you're looking, and you're going, whoa, what? But I mean, it was all on the cheap, right? It was all on cheap. Then we got it to the charging station. Volkswagen owns Charge America, or Electrify America. They wouldn't talk to each other. We ran through. I wouldn't work on my cell phone. The app wouldn't work on my cell phone. Didn't work on Eric's. I'm not sure. Was it Zach? I can't remember. If it was Zach's cell phone or Eric's. Somebody got it to work. One person. And then we said, "How long is this going to take?" And it said like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, we didn't get that kind of time. So we went and had lunch. It came back. Oh, it shut off. It shut off because, you're only allowed to have an hour's worth of charging. Are you kidding me? There was nobody else there. None of the other stations were. I was fried. I literally was out of my mind unhappy. And then I mean, with the Mustang, they came in, they said, we got the new Ford Mustang in the back. It looks like a nice sedan. I opened it up. It had a frunk, which the VW didn't have. And it had a drain in it. I was excited. We took it out on the road. It was wicked fast, not as fast as a 3, but definitely plenty fast. Then we went to the charging station. It connected immediately. Everything worked. I mean, it's nowhere near what Tesla was with the, with self-driving and whatnot. But man alive, it made number 2 position, and it only slightly beat out the Polestar, which I was also very impressed with. That would be my third choice for people when they say they want to buy a vehicle. But at the end of the day, that did not happen with Volkswagen. So what happened? What happened there? Is this like putting the B team on the job, or I have no idea. But I will tell you, I was sincerely disappointed with the ID4, and it looks like the marketplace, at least in the U.S., is reacting the same way, with 153 vehicles sitting around doing nothing when nobody has anything. I mean, the Leaf doesn't have that kind of backlog. Nobody's got anything like that. Only VW. So. It's really kind of disappointing.
Because because I had so many Volkswagen, gas cars in the past, and the reason I didn't, because someone said, you've just got brand loyalty about Toyota. And I said, I've never had brand loyalty. Then I remember that I had 5 Volkswagen Golfs in a row, so I guess that is brand loyalty. But I do. Well, the reason I got them was because they were reliable and well made, and they lasted a long time. That was the kind of my reasoning at the time. So I've always been sort of in the background, sort of supportive of Volkswagen and what they're doing. I've been around their factories. It's one of the few companies. I went around Wolfsburg, which is an extraordinary, enormous manufacturing plant, and I sort of assumed that they'd then be able to transition to make really good electric cars, like they made really good. And I think. Well, you've just summed it up, really. It's kind of disappointing now we've now just leased an ID4. The reason we got it was because they couldn't find anything else, the lease company. So the ID4 was the one that was available, which is kind of revealing then. Because we couldn't get a Mustang for love nor money in this country, or Polestar, there's waiting lists for every car, at the moment.
Right.
But we did find that. But I mean, it's the software that's let them down. So that is interesting that Dees that's been cited as one of the reasons of him going, is because the software. Why can't they get the software people? They're a huge company with loads of money. Why can't they hire really good software people that make software work?
Because they're really big. At the end of the day, software people make more money than everybody. We had a guy here was working on software that could reverse engineer software. He lasted 2 weeks, and he was being paid more money than I was. Okay, and he found something else that was paying better. If you're a big company, you have rules and regulations on what kind of money you can spend on different individuals. And I'm telling you what, these guys are not cheap. They are really expensive. No. And the reason that Tesla is so lucky is because when they were developing their software, we were in the middle of the Obama years where everything was going bankrupt or being shut down.
Yeah.
And he hired up all of the any software guy that he wanted, he could get, because they were looking for new work. And so he got a whole bunch of them, told them they could have stock options. The stock options started to climb up, and now, I mean, they don't have any problem getting software people. The best on the planet go to Tesla, and that's the way it works. I mean, it's an amazing. They did the same thing. They cleaned out NASA. That's why they got the rocket ship stuff so easily and so quickly. Because again, there was a thing that Obama wanted to cut costs, government costs and whatnot. So all of the new hire, actually, if you were, I think it's something like, if you were like 45 years old or younger, you got your walk-in papers. NASA let them go. And who was there to collect them? Elon Musk. He's got plenty of money, and he's got he's going to build rocket ships, and that's kind of like how it went. He got the cream of the crop during the hard times when everybody else is getting rid of people. He was hiring them. And that's why he's gotten to where he is. And then the other thing is, software is kind of a tricky business. You can reverse engineer software sometimes if you have the boards and you understand what's going on. However, that stuff's copyrighted. There's big rules against that. A patent is one thing. You can always argue back and forth. But copywritten, it's like, I remember when George Harrison got sued for having 8 notes or 10 notes in a row that was from some other old song. And then he wrote another song saying, I think this is my song. He lost because copyright laws are different. So when you're developing software, you have to try and, it's a torturous path to weave to where you need to get to. And that's where a lot of these folks are going to fall on their tails. Either that or they're going to have to license certain aspects of the software to get around the copyright laws and things like that. And that's only going to make Tesla richer.
Yeah. It's an amazing take on it. It's very refreshing to hear that from you, because it's so. I think when you're party to the kind of PR machines from the big companies, you kind of it's very easy to be swept along with it, and it's so refreshing to hear you say you looked underneath this car and you went, "What the hell is that?" Because that's not the PR story that someone like me would be party to. Would receive that. But I mean, in terms of the future, then, I mean, obviously we've kind of discussed the Chinese quite a lot, but do you see a kind of continued? Well, I mean, I guess the thing is a continued rise for Tesla, but then surely some of the old manufacturers that we've all grown up knowing well are just going to stop. They're just going to cease. They just will disappear. I mean, do you think that is a possibility?
I think that's a very strong possibility. I hate to say it, but our old best customer, the guys we helped a lot to grow. The badges and the name, the Chrysler folks, I think they're in deep trouble right now. And the reason for that is I don't think the French really understood what they were getting into in the North American market. It's not the first time that the French have tried to get into this market, and the last time was a disaster when Renault came over and they brought on the Renault Dauphine, and and then they bought American Motors, and then they vanished. They all ran away. Well, I just think that the Chrysler Group is going to have a hard time, and I'm thinking that's going to be one that might disappear. When you look at all the other guys, the only car company that I think, major car company that I think will probably not see a great giant departure from where they are right now, I think is Ford. And I've said this, it's not like the first time I've said it, and I'm standing behind it, because I don't see the A team at Volkswagen taking over. I don't see the A team from General Motors. I don't see the A team from Toyota. I don't see the A team that I was expecting. When you think about it, General Motors was the first guys into the marketplace with the EV1. Then when the resurgence came, they were the first guys in the marketplace with the Chevy Bolt, or the Volt Volt, and then the Bolt.
Yeah.
They should be dominating the marketplace right now over here.
Absolutely.
Why didn't that happen? That comes from internal politics. That's why I think Dietz that's why I think he's gone. He wasn't politically correct. And believe me, I watched all kinds of big companies dig pits for executives that they didn't want, and then, come on, a little bit further, bring it a little bit further. Oh yeah, we're right on your side. And then when they fall in the hole and there's a bear in there, they get ripped to shreds and tossed and on their way. And I watched that. I watched that happen at BMW. I watched it happen at Mercedes. Certainly at Chrysler. On and on and on. Pretty much every company we've seen, there are. That's why I never went on the political ladder or the management ladder. You get on the management ladder, and it's easy to get decapitated. But I was on the technical ladder. Once you're a worldwide expert, who's going to toss you? Well, my boss actually had a lot to do with that as well. But anyway, it's very difficult to get politically screwed over if you're on the technical ladder. But if you're on the management ladder, holy mackerel, you have no friends, zero friends. Even guys that get together to dig a pit for someone else, even they don't stick around. They're all lone wolves. They'll only come together for a little while, and then they're out for themselves again. So I feel sorry for Volkswagen. I really do. Yeah,
no, me too. I do too. The one before we go, the one I'd love to quickly discuss with you is Toyota, just because my journey into this world of electric vehicles and renewable energy and that whole thing was through the Prius. That's really the first. I first got a lift. I got a ride in a Prius in California in I think 2000. I'd never heard of it. It wasn't for sale in the UK at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it, and I was so intrigued by that, and I thought this is extraordinary. And that, when I then learnt the whole story of why it was there and all that stuff, and for that long period in the sort of noughties, Toyota was absolutely ahead of the pack in terms of alternative fueled vehicles. I mean, they just were. There was no one else remotely close to them, and something's happened. I don't know what's happened there, because if you look at the kind of excitement and the focus and the drive and the innovation that's in the automotive industry now, and there's a lot of it, and we've just been talking about China, Tesla, all the American companies, the arrivals, all that. Toyota's not on the list, and I mean, my relationship with them has been harmed by the self-charging hybrid slogan, which I didn't ever buy into. I thought that was a really kind of a cheap shot. But why aren't they at the forefront of electric vehicles? What has happened with them, and why is that? I don't know. I'm assuming they're still doing okay as a car company at the moment. They're not going bankrupt. They're still making a hell of a lot of cars.
They are the. I don't know if they're the. Let me just check my little piece of paper here. Yeah, Toyota Group is the biggest car company. Period.
Yeah, they're the biggest car company.
Okay, but there was a change, okay? And the change happened when Ichi, the original guy in charge, Ichi Toyota left, and he gave it to his son. And his son was trained in Harvard. He's an MBA, and he focuses his attention on that bottom line and quarter by quarter. And they had options to go in different directions. You could stay with hybrids. You could go to fuel cells, hydrogen. You could go with electric. You could go with battery, or you could. I mean, there was a whole bunch of different options, and I think that they chose unwisely. That would be the first thing. But I think they chose for reasons that totally escape me. I have no idea why they went down the path that they did. Why did they try and develop? I mean, we looked at the fuel cell, and they couldn't make it. They have a very unique way of scanning out the electrons. But but at the end of the day, I mean, it's so complicated. It's a weave of some sort. It's so complicated, we could not figure out how they could manufacture it. That sort of that kind of. And nobody else on the planet was interested. Nobody wanted to get involved in it. There was other people that had fuel cells. We worked for International Fuel Cell and Ballard and all these other guys. We knew all about it. I mean, I knew what it could do, and I knew how much energy it would take to get the job done. But, I mean, when we looked at that, I just said, this is way over my head. I've seen everybody else's, but I have no idea what I'm looking at here. This is too complicated. This is a puzzle that I know I can't fix, and let's just shut it up, close it up, and get it out of here. And we did, and that's precisely where we got rid of it, because we couldn't see a future. It didn't take long for me as an engineer to see that. If you're not an engineer, if you're into razzle dazzle, well, then maybe you could get steered in the wrong direction. But I will tell you that with Toyota anyway, their head was turned in a direction that didn't help them out at all, and never will. Toyota, I think Toyota and VW are going to be the big losers to the Chinese. I mean, it's always the piranha is always going to go after the fattest cow. It's the way it works. That's the way they work it.
I mean, that's number 1 and 2 in the world. Right? Basically, Toyota number 1, VW number 2, the two biggest car manufacturers we've ever known.
Right, exactly. So I think that the Koreans are going to come out smelling like roses. I think that Ford is going to be in excellent shape, and a couple of these smaller companies like Rivian and Arrival, they're going to do well. Because why? Because they've taken a different approach to the buying public. And I think what they're doing is they're focusing their attentions on the right buyer. And the right buyer is not the average man between 35 and 55. It's kids. And I'm telling you, this is you could have a whole show on this. But I'm telling you what, I've got more little children coming up saying, "Oh, I watch your YouTube channel." I'm going, really?
Wow.
What for? Because they're interested in how things are going. And so I've had them as young as maybe 6 or 7, and 15 to 18 or something. Our cycle looks like that. The guys here at the front are really young. It dips down, and then you've got old guys like us at the other end.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And when little kids come along and say that, well, my dad's an embarrassment. He doesn't really understand EVs. My dad's an embarrassment? Because, that's a guy that is not going to be buying a big V8. I guarantee it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think some of these other guys...
That was one of the most startling little moments at the very first Fully Charged Live we did in the UK. Was I met a family. There was about 5,000-6,000 people there. Met this family with their young son, and they were saying, "Oh, we've had a great time. It's been great, blah blah blah, and we did this and that." And I said to the little boy, and I would say he was probably 7 or 8 years old. I said, "Have you enjoyed it today? and he was like, his mouth was open, and he just said, "We went in a Tesla."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's what he'll remember when he's 50.
Yeah.
He'll remember, I remember going to that thing where I went in a Tesla. He's never going to forget that. And that was because the Tesla Owners Club were driving people from the car park to the venue, and they were amazing. They were volunteering. The one downside of that was there was a speed limit. This is at a racetrack in the UK, Silverstone, and the service roads, they have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. And on that first year, one of the marshals got on his walkie-talkie and said, "Can you have a word with the Tesla people? Because we've just had a Model X go past at 104 miles an hour full of screaming children."
Yeah.
So we had to do something about that. But it was a remarkable. But that little kid has always stayed with me. He didn't say anything. I know, because there was loads of stuff for kids there. It was playground, all kinds of stuff. And he just was like that. We went in a Tesla. That was his thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
No.
Anyway, we've gone over the time, Sandy. You've been so brilliant. I've got to talk to you again. You're such an amazing fountain of knowledge of this whole area. It's been really fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really, really good.
Thank you. It's my honor to be on your show.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. What an incredible privilege it was to speak to Sandy. Please do send this episode to your friends and send them a link to it and say, look, listen to this. This is amazing. Do have a listen to this. It's such a great insight into what's going on around the world with electric vehicles. Really extraordinary. What an extraordinary man. What an extraordinary life he's had, and what an amazing knowledge that he has of what's going on in this world. And I just found it really, in a way, reassuring that there's really clever people who really understand how things are made and how manufacturing works and how companies work, who is saying that clearly electric vehicles are that's what's going to happen. It's not just me or my mates saying it. It's proper people who really understand this. That's it. Please do subscribe to the Free Charge Plus podcast. Please do have a look at the Patreon page. Links are in the show notes. Tell your friends and family about it. And please do keep listening. And as always, if you have been, thank you for doing that thing, which is listening.